The underestimated entry. Captain Ilara Voss stood on the observation deck of the Phoenix, her hands clasped tightly behind her back as she watched the other competitors arrive at Nexus Station. One by one, the sleek vessels of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations slid into their designated berths, their hulls gleaming with exotic materials that seemed to bend the very light around them. Each ship represented centuries, sometimes millennia, of spacefaring knowledge. And then there was the Phoenix. The human vessel sat awkwardly among its peers, its utilitarian design a patchwork of retrofitted technologies and improvised solutions, where the Zathrian ships boasted quantum-locked hulls that phased partially out of conventional space, and the Merekti vessels pulsed with living bioluminescent propulsion systems. The Phoenix looked like it had been cobbled together from spare parts, which, to be fair, it partially had been. Enjoying the view, Captain. Chief Engineer Maya Okafor joined Ilara at the viewport, her dark eyes reflecting the brilliant array of competing vessels. There's something else, aren't they? Ilara said quietly. They're fancy toys, Maya responded with a dismissive wave. Built by species who've never had to improvise a day in their collective lives. Fancy toys that go very, very fast, Ilara reminded her. The Zathrian Whisperwind holds the current record for the Galactic Transit Championship. Their phase shift drive is predictable, Maya interrupted. Efficient, yes. Beautiful, certainly, but predictable. Her fingers tapped against her datapad. Our solution is messier. But sometimes mess is exactly what you need. The ship's communication system chimed, and Navigator Thomas Chen's voice filled the deck. Captain, we've received our official invitation to the pre-race banquet. The Galactic Racing Federation has designated our participation as commendably ambitious. Ilara snorted. Diplomatic phrasing for what are these primitives thinking? It had been just 27 years since humanity had achieved faster-than-light travel and joined the Galactic Concord. In cosmic terms, they were absolute newcomers, their technology considered crude and unrefined by races who had been traversing the stars since before humans had discovered fire. The Galactic Transit Championship was the most prestigious racing event in known space, held once every 12 Earth years. No new species had ever placed in the top 10 in their first entry. Most didn't even finish the course. You should see the betting odds, Thomas continued. The Krell bookmakers are offering 12,000 to 1 against us even completing the race. Good, Maya said with a fierce grin. I've instructed the crew to place discreet bets through various proxies. If we pull this off, we'll fund the next 3 Phoenix upgrades through Krell gambling losses alone. The pre-race banquet was held in Nexus Station's Grand Hall, a cavernous space with a transparent dome ceiling that showcased the swirling nebula beyond. Representatives from 17 spacefaring civilizations mingled, their diverse physiologies requiring an impressive array of environmental accommodations. Ilara, Maya, and Thomas entered as a unit, their formal Earth Fleet uniforms drawing curious and often condescending glances. They hadn't gone 10 steps before they were approached by Orbital Commander Zixfallen, the 8-limbed pilot of the Zathrian Whisperwind. Captain Voss, the alien's translator rendered in fluid English. What an unexpected honor to have Earth participate so prematurely. Ilara offered the traditional Zathrian greeting gesture. The honor is ours, Commander. We have much to learn from observing masters of the art. Indeed, 4 of Zixfallen's eye stalks swiveled to examine Maya and Thomas. I toured your vessel earlier, from the exterior, of course. Fascinating use of conventional materials, almost nostalgic, like viewing a historical artifact. We work with what we've got, Maya said simply, her tone neutral despite the tightening of her jaw. Of course, of course. The Zathrian skin rippled in what the humans had learned was their equivalent of sympathetic condescension. Your species' resourcefulness is widely remarked upon. May I offer some professional advice? The ion storm in the Magellan sector tends to destroy ships with, shall we say, traditional shielding configurations. Perhaps consider withdrawing before that segment. We would all understand. We appreciate your concern, Ilara said diplomatically. We'll take it under advisement. As the alien moved on to greet others, Thomas muttered, "Did he just suggest we quit before we even start?" "He did," Ilara confirmed, accepting a glass of something purple from a passing server drone. "And he's probably right, by conventional logic. The Phoenix shouldn't be able to withstand that ion storm." "Good thing we're not using conventional logic," Maya said, her eyes sweeping the room. "Or conventional anything else." The race preparations continued for 3 more days. The Phoenix crew worked around the clock, making last-minute adjustments to systems that left visiting race officials scratching various appendages in confusion. "You're routing power from life support reserves through your secondary navigation array," one Merekti inspector asked, his bioluminescent spots flashing in patterns that indicated extreme puzzlement. "It's an efficiency measure," Maya explained blandly, offering no further information. On the morning of the race, the 17 competing vessels arranged themselves in formation near the massive quantum buoy that marked the starting point. The Phoenix had been assigned the outermost position, furthest from the optimal racing line, a placement traditionally given to the entrant considered least likely to be competitive. In the ship's cockpit, Ilara settled into the captain's chair as Maya took up position at the engineering station, and Thomas activated the navigation controls. "All systems normal," Thomas reported. "Well, normal for us anyway." "Pre-race comm check," Maya announced. "We're receiving the standard good luck messages. The Krell commentator is comparing us to," translating roughly, "a Stone Age child entering a quantum physics competition." Ilara smiled thinly. "Let's see if this Stone Age child can teach them something new." Status on our modifications. The gravimetric disruptors are masked behind standard shield frequencies. The dimensional anchor is disguised as a routine stabilizer. The probability drive is, well, it's just not showing up on their scans at all. Maya's fingers danced across her controls. "As far as they can tell, we're running a slightly improved version of the standard human interstellar drive." The race director's voice echoed through all competing vessels. "Racers, prepare for dimensional mark synchronization in 30 seconds. The championship course will take you through the Magellan Ion Belt, the Vortex Crossroads, the Quantum Reef, and finally the Singularity Approach before returning to Nexus Station. Safety vessels are stationed throughout, but be advised, rescue may not be possible in certain segments. Racing with honor brings glory to your civilizations." Ilara leaned forward. "Thomas, take us out slow and steady. Maya, keep our real capabilities masked until we hit the ion belt." 10 seconds to dimensional mark," the race director announced. The 17 ships hummed with building energy, each preparing to unleash their unique propulsion systems. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Commence. The void exploded with light as the competitors burst forward. The Zathrian Whisperwind immediately took the lead, its hull phasing in and out of conventional space. The Merekti vessels pulsed forward in a coordinated dance, while the crystalline Krell ships bent the space-time around them to accelerate to tremendous speeds. The Phoenix moved forward at what appeared to be a respectable but unexceptional pace, quickly falling to 15th place. "They're not even bothering to track us on the main feed," Thomas noted, monitoring the race broadcasts. "We've been relegated to the Novelty Entries subchannel." For the first hour, the Phoenix maintained its unimpressive position, following a traditional racing line that raised no eyebrows among the observers. As they approached the Magellan Ion Belt, a seething storm of charged particles that stretched across 3 solar systems, the race had settled into a predictable pattern. The Zathrian Whisperwind led, followed closely by 2 Merekti vessels and a Krell crystalline ship. "Entering Ion Belt in 60 seconds, Thomas announced. Ilara nodded. "Initiate Protocol Phoenix." Maya's hands flew across her station. "Initiating. Gravimetric disruptors coming online. Dimensional anchor engaging. Probability drive active." The Phoenix shuddered as hidden systems activated. To an outside observer, the ship appeared to flicker momentarily before continuing forward. "They're noticing something," Thomas reported. "Race officials are requesting a status check." "Send the prepared response," Ilara ordered. "Tell them we're experiencing minor fluctuations, but are proceeding safely." As the leading ships entered the ion belt, they employed their tried and tested strategies. The Zathrian vessel phased partially out of normal space to avoid the worst of the charged particles. The Merekti ships generated biological fields that dispersed the ions harmlessly. The Phoenix did something entirely different. Instead of fighting against the storm or trying to avoid it, the human vessel began to absorb and channel the ionic energy. The gravimetric disruptors Maya had installed created localized pockets of altered spacetime around the ship, while the dimensional anchor kept them firmly rooted in normal space, despite the tremendous forces being generated. Most remarkably, the probability drive, a theoretical technology that even most humans considered impossible, began to calculate and execute the path of statistical least resistance through the storm, a course that no pre-planned navigation could have charted. "We're picking up speed," Thomas reported, his voice tight with concentration. "Passing the 16th place ship. Now 15th, 14th. On the race broadcasts, commentators were suddenly focusing on the human vessel. "The Earth ship appears to be, is this correct? They appear to be accelerating within the ion belt," a Krell announcer stated incredulously. "This contradicts all known principles of ion interaction with conventional hull materials." By the time the Phoenix emerged from the ion belt, it had surged to 8th place. The observation drones captured the reactions of other race teams as they watched the rankings update, their expressions of shock and disbelief requiring no translation. Commander Zixfallen, still in the lead but now monitoring the unexpected development, opened a direct channel to the Phoenix. "Captain Voss," the Zathrian's voice held a new note of wariness. "Your vessel appears to be performing unexpectedly well." Ilara smiled, though the video feed was audio only by mutual agreement during the race. "Just a bit of human ingenuity, Commander. We look forward to seeing you at the finish line." As they approached the halfway point of the race, the impossible was beginning to seem possible. The Phoenix had climbed to 6th place and was gaining on the 5th place Krell vessel. "How are our systems holding?" Ilara asked. Maya's face was illuminated by the glow of her engineering displays. "The gravimetric disruptors are at 82% efficiency. Dimensional anchor is stable. The probability drive is, well, it's doing things I don't fully understand, but it's working." "The next challenge is the quantum reef," Thomas reminded them. "That's where we'll really put our theories to the test." Ilara nodded, her eyes fixed on the viewport as the Phoenix continued to accelerate, leaving behind millennia of assumptions about what humans could achieve. Impossible innovation. The quantum reef loomed ahead, a vast expanse where reality itself grew thin and unstable. Normal space fractured here into countless overlapping dimensions, creating navigational challenges that had claimed dozens of vessels over the centuries. Even experienced racers approached this segment with extreme caution. The Phoenix had climbed to 5th place, overtaking the Krell vessel through a particularly dense section of the course. The race commentators had shifted from dismissive amusement to bewildered analysis, as experts were hastily brought in to explain how a primitive human ship could possibly be performing at this level. "Quantum reef boundary in 30 seconds, Thomas announced, his fingers dancing across the navigation interface. "Conventional sensors failing. Switching to quantum state observational mode." This was the moment Maya had been preparing for. Activating full probability drive integration. Dimensional anchor reconfiguring to match reef frequencies. Unlike the sleek alien vessels which attempted to identify the safest paths through the reef's labyrinthine structure, the Phoenix employed an entirely different approach. Rather than trying to find stable routes, the human ship embraced the quantum instability, using it as a propulsion system. "They're not seriously planning to surf the dimensional fluctuations," a Merekti commentator exclaimed. That's suicide. The mathematical variables are too complex for any navigation system to calculate in real time. Ilara gripped her chair as the Phoenix plunged into the reef. This is where we find out if your theory works, Maya. It'll work, the engineer replied with quiet confidence. Humans have been doing the mathematically impossible since we first decided to bang rocks together to make fire. The ship shuddered violently as it entered the reef. Outside the viewports, reality itself seemed to fracture and reassemble in dizzying patterns. Colors existed that had no names, and directions became meaningless concepts as conventional space dissolved around them. Probability drive fully engage, Maya reported. We're riding the quantum foam. The fundamental insight that had led to the Phoenix's design came not from sophisticated alien principles, but from Earth's own history of oceanic navigation. Just as ancient Polynesian sailors had learned to read the patterns of ocean swells to navigate vast Pacific distances without instruments, the probability drive read the patterns of quantum fluctuations, making adjustments faster than conscious thought. The aliens' approach to quantum navigation involved powerful computers that calculated stable paths through chaos. The human approach instead treated chaos itself as a medium to be understood and utilized. We're gaining on the fourth-place ship, Thomas reported incredulously. The Merekti vessel Endless Tide is experiencing stability issues. They can't maintain their biomorphic field in these conditions. On the race broadcasts, the Phoenix's trajectory through the quantum reef appeared to make no logical sense. The human ship zigzagged between dimensional fractures, occasionally seeming to be in multiple positions simultaneously, before resolving into a single location further ahead than should have been possible. They're not following any recognized navigation pattern, one race analyst observed. It's as if they're dancing with the quantum fluctuations rather than fighting against them. Commander Zixvalen, still in the lead but now watching the approaching human vessel with increasing concern, ordered his crew to increase power to the phase shift drive. The Zathrian technology, refined over thousands of years, responded with a surge of speed that briefly increased the gap between the Whisperwind and its pursuers. Inside the Phoenix, alarms began to sound as systems trained under the unprecedented stresses. Dimensional anchor at 87% capacity, Maya reported. Probability drive showing signs of synchronization decay. We need to make our move now, before the systems degrade further. Ilara nodded. Thomas, plot an intercept course with the third-place Krull ship. Maya, reroute emergency power reserves to the probability drive. Captain, that's our last safety margin, Maya warned. If the drive fails with emergency power flowing through it, then we'll either be galaxy-famous or atomically scattered across 17 dimensions. Ilara finished for her, but we won't be forgotten. Do it. The Phoenix surged forward with renewed purpose, its trajectory becoming even more erratic to outside observers, but following a pattern that only the probability drive could perceive. As they overtook the third-place Krull vessel, the crystalline ship's captain opened a direct channel. Impossible. The alien's translated voice crackled. Your technology is registered as standard human FTL. What are you really using? Ilara allowed herself a small smile. Exactly what we registered, Ambassador Krith. We've simply reimagined its potential. As they emerged from the quantum reef, the race standings had been transformed. The Zathrian Whisperwind still led, followed by a Merekti vessel, but the Phoenix had incredibly claimed third position. The final leg of the race, the singularity approach, would determine the ultimate victor. The singularity approach was exactly what its name suggested, a course that took competitors perilously close to a carefully contained black hole. The tremendous gravitational forces created a slingshot effect that could propel vessels to speeds otherwise unattainable, but the precision required to hit the optimal trajectory without being pulled into the event horizon was extraordinary. Traditional approach vectors locked in, Thomas reported as they neared the singularity. All other vessels are following standard gravitational slingshot calculations. Maya looked up from her engineering station. Captain, I have a suggestion. It's Unorthodox. At this point, I'd expect nothing less, Ilara replied. What are you thinking? Everyone else will skirt the ergosphere, the outer layer of the black hole's influence. But if we reconfigure the dimensional anchor and use the probability drive to calculate a path through the inner ergosphere itself. Thomas's head snapped up. That's insane. No ship has ever voluntarily entered the inner ergosphere. The tidal forces would tear us apart. Conventional ships, yes, Maya agreed. But we're not using only conventional physics anymore. The probability drive can plot a course that exists in the quantum space between certainties. Ilara considered for only a moment. Do it. If we're going to make history today, let's make it spectacular. As the leading vessels approached the singularity, they executed their carefully planned trajectories, using the gravitational forces to accelerate while maintaining a safe distance from the event horizon. The Phoenix, however, altered course dramatically, diving toward the black hole in a move that caused race officials to immediately dispatch rescue ships, certain they were witnessing a tragic miscalculation. They've lost control, the race commentator exclaimed. The human vessel is being pulled into the singularity. But the Phoenix hadn't lost control. As it plunged deeper into the gravitational well than any ship had ever voluntarily gone, the probability drive calculated a path that shouldn't have existed. A quantum loophole in space-time that would allow them to harness energies no other vessel could approach. Inside the ship, reality seemed to stretch and compress. The viewport showed stars smearing into lines of light as space-time itself warped around them. Warning systems blared as conventional sensors failed completely. Dimensional anchor at maximum strain, Maya reported, her voice tight. Probability drive calculating final vector. Now, the Phoenix reached the nadir of its dive, and then, impossibly, began to climb out of the gravitational well, accelerating at a rate that defied conventional physics. The ship had found a slingshot trajectory through regions of space-time that other races considered suicidal to approach. As they emerged from the singularity's influence, Thomas stared at his instruments in disbelief. We've overtaken the Merekti vessel. We're in second place. The final stretch of the race was a relatively straightforward run back to Nexus Station. The Zathrian Whisperwind maintained its lead, but the gap had narrowed significantly. The Phoenix, riding the tremendous momentum gained from its singularity maneuver, continued to accelerate. Probability drive failing, Maya announced, though there was pride rather than concern in her voice. It's done its job. We're on conventional power for the final approach. The race broadcasts were now focused almost exclusively on the battle for first place. The Zathrian vessel, sensing the threat, pushed its phase shift drive to maximum capacity, beginning to flicker in and out of normal space at an accelerated rate. They're redlining their systems, Thomas noted. That level of phase shifting isn't sustainable. Almost as if confirming his assessment, the Whisperwind suddenly stuttered visibly, its phasing pattern becoming erratic. The tremendous stresses placed on the Zathrian technology had finally found its breaking point. Now, Tomas, Ilara ordered, everything we've got. The Phoenix surged forward one final time, overtaking the faltering Zathrian vessel mere moments before both ships crossed the finish line at Nexus Station. For several seconds, silence filled the Phoenix's bridge as the crew stared at the confirmation message on their screens. Earth vessel Fuinax. First place finish. Galactic Hifrayanisite. CAM Pionishatite. Then the communication system exploded with incoming messages, race officials demanding explanations, competitors expressing disbelief and outrage, and a small but growing number of congratulatory notes from observers impressed by what they had just witnessed. The victory ceremony was hastily reconfigured to accommodate the unexpected winners. As Ilara, Maya, and Thomas stood on the central platform of Nexus Station's Grand Hall, representatives from all competing civilizations watched with emotions ranging from shock to admiration to suspicion. The Galactic Racing Federation's president, An ancient Krell, whose crystalline form shimmered with accumulated wisdom, presented the championship trophy, a piece of stabilized quantum foam captured in the moment of the universe's creation. In 26,000 years of recorded galactic competition, the Federation president announced, "No species has ever won the championship on their first entry. Earth has not only defied prediction, but has forced us to reconsider what we thought we knew about the fundamental principles of interstellar racing." As Ilara accepted the trophy, Commander Zix Velen approached, his 8 limbs moving in the pattern that humans had learned indicated formal respect. "Your victory was unexpected, Captain Voss," the Zathrian said. "Our preliminary analysis suggests your ship employed technologies beyond what was declared in your registration. I can assure you, Commander, that everything we used falls within the technical parameters we registered," Ilara responded. "We simply approached the problems differently. By entering the inner ergosphere of a black hole." The alien's eye stalks quivered. No sane species would attempt such a maneuver. Maya stepped forward. "That's possibly our greatest innovation, Commander. Humans have a different definition of impossible than most species. Where you see insurmountable barriers, we see challenges to overcome." The racing officials eventually validated the Phoenix's victory after extensive technical inspections, confirmed that while the human approach was revolutionary, it violated no competition rules. The probability drive, in particular, fascinated alien engineers who had dismissed similar theoretical concepts centuries ago as mathematically unfeasible. In the days following the championship, the Phoenix became a popular attraction at Nexus Station, with representatives from various civilizations requesting tours and technical exchanges. The victory had earned humanity a new level of respect in the galactic community. "They're calling it the Phoenix Paradigm," Thomas told Ilara as they watched a group of Mer-Ekti engineers studying sensor readings from their ship. "The approach of embracing chaos rather than trying to impose order on it. I prefer what that Krell journalist called it," Maya said with a grin. "The human paradox. The ability to succeed precisely because we don't know something is supposed to be impossible." Ilara watched as a young Zathrian scientist engaged in animated discussion with one of her engineering crew. "I think we've done something more important than win a race today. We've reminded the galaxy that there's more than one path to the future." As news of the human victory spread across the stars, the betting houses of the Krell suffered their largest single-day losses in recorded history. Maya's discreet wagers had paid off spectacularly, ensuring that the next iteration of the Phoenix would incorporate even more impossible innovations. The human ship had arrived at the championship as an object of curiosity and condescension. It departed as the catalyst for a new era of galactic technological development, one where ancient assumptions would be challenged and the impossible would become merely improbable, then inevitable. As Captain Ilara Voss prepared her crew for the journey back to Earth, she couldn't help but smile at the thought of what humanity might achieve by the next championship. After all, they were just getting started.